Goody, goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Cogden, joined by my fellow co-hosts and filmmakers, John, Elaine, and Woolscroft.
Hey. Word up.
So, this is episode, what are we on now? Episode number 3?
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure.
Yes.
I am excited about this, and not just because so many fans bootlegged the Star Wars thing online recently, which I think is awesome. Suck it, Disney. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's kind of like talk a little bit. What's in the news?
Yeah, so to start off this one, since we've last spoken, there has been a couple of stories here and there. We're just going to focus on two, and the first one is one that I think is very interesting. So they're saying that Beetlejuice is going to finally be getting that sequel.
Good God.
Now, it's been in talks for a while, but Winona Ryder was on Seth Meyers recently, very recently, and she said, I think I'm allowed to talk about it, because I guess when Tim Burton was doing press for Big Eyes, he had alluded to it in an interview of his own, and the only way that he ever said he would do it is if, Michael Keaton would come back, and Michael Keaton said it's the only sequel he's ever been interested in doing at all.
Besides Batman Returns.
Yeah.
So,
well, they paid him a lot of money for that. But he kind of also said, Michael Keaton did, that he would only do it if Tim Burton came back. And this is actually fairly interesting because there was a scrapped sequel to Beetlejuice that was supposed to come out not too long after the first one did. You know, he made Beetlejuice, he made Batman, and I think they were going right back to the well first for a Beetlejuice sequel, and it was supposed to be Beetlejuice in Hawaii.
Seriously?
Yes.
So awesome.
Following that trend of, well, the sequel is going to be the exact same movie but in a different place, like Homeward Bound 2, Lost in San Francisco, Babe 2, Pig in the City, Sex in the City 2, Pig in the City.
Did you see what he did there?
Yeah, I did. That wasn't from
the time frame.
I tend to agree with that.
That wasn't from the time frame.
But so that's the continuing trend. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. So they were going to have Beetlejuice in Hawaii. I'm assuming that Lydia was going to go on vacation with her family, and somehow Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis were going to come on a ghost plane. I don't know. Thank God that one got scrapped. But I guess they decided to just make this, 20 years later? They're following that Indiana Jones theory.
Well, that's not just an Indiana Jones theory. That's like an every movie theory. You see that happening more often now than anything. And honestly, it pisses me the fuck off.
Me too. It's like Hollywood doesn't have any good ideas, and they have to keep raping our childhood just to make a buck. I think it's gross.
Well,
because these movies are never any good.
No.
With these reboots, all these years later, you want to get excited. That small child, part of you is like, oh my gosh, remember what it felt like? And then, it's just some kind of cash grab ridiculousness.
And honestly, for me at least, I think it's cowardice. At the time when the movie came out, they're like, oh, well, it did a decent amount and that sort of thing, but we're going to hold off. And we're going to hold off, and we're going to hold off, and we're going to hold off, because whatever fucking metrics, the Hollywood studios decide to use is to tell them that it's a good time for a sequel. And then honestly, when the old guard leaves, the new guard comes in, and they're like, you know what? I think we're going to hold off for about a little bit longer and a little bit longer. And then by the time you're done, you've got 20 or 30 years in place. And then it's suddenly...
The nostalgia pops.
The nostalgia pops in. And now the people who were teenagers who saw that movie, or were 5 years old or 6 years old or 7 years old, now those people are, in their late 20s or in their 30s, and suddenly it's, we can cash in on their money twice.
And then get these people's children.
Yes.
John and I are married. We don't have kids, but a lot of people our age do, so they can take the whole family and make more money that way.
Yep.
And it's something that they're trying to hit up twice, but it seemed like before, when they would hold off on sequels in the 80s and 90s, it seemed like they felt some kind of responsibility to the storytelling that they were doing, and that feels like that's not a thing anymore. No one cares.
I might disagree with you on that. I don't think they've ever cared about the storytelling in sequels. The majority of sequels are shameless cash grabs. There are very, very few.
But then why did they hold off before?
They hold off because, as I said, their
The
metrics
metrics just didn't match
are
up.
saying that it's not necessary to match up with.
Here was their reasoning, and I mean, I don't know. People might catch me on this, and they might put on comments boards that I'm not 100% correct about
you,
this.
John, you're wrong.
But I think they pushed Batman Returns ahead of schedule, and that kind of put Beetlejuice on delay. And then Burton started doing his dream project of Ed Wood, and before you know it, the script just got delayed. And Keaton was like, "You know what? I'm multiplicity rich now. I don't have to do this shit." And and then when
I love that movie though. I love that movie. I love Multiplicity. Yeah.
And by that, I do too.
The movie's underrated. It
really
is.
The
movie isn't fantastic, but Keaton is fantastic.
That's a good decision.
Annie McDowell, not so much. Honestly,
definitely a good point to
she's
make.
forgettable. But my favorite is the number 4. The copy who remember how sometimes when you go ahead and you have a copy and you copy it 2 or 3 times, it starts to look kind of smushed and not quite as clear. Well, we kind of did a copy of 3. And then we got that. So.
Well, too, I mean, and it's just funny, speaking of copying things over and over again, exactly what the studios are doing. What I don't understand is why the long gap. Because for me, I think a really decent example of this is Zoolander 2.
Oh, yeah.
Why now?
Well, I think it's to Brian's point exactly. It's nostalgia. It's long enough that there's a certain time frame that you either have to do it right away or you have to wait a long time.
Like Tron Legacy. Honestly, that is the biggest one for me that I think of is Tron Legacy. That movie came out in the early 80s, and it wasn't even popular. They tried doing things, and I say that's a groundbreaking movie from the standpoint that it was very inventive to do the rotoscoping and combine that with CGI at the time. And that's why most people forget the movie. They remember the video game that came out with it.
Right.
Okay? And then, 20, almost 30 years later, they're deciding like, oh, you know what? Let's do a sequel. Because, it's been far long enough that people forget that the movie didn't perform well at the box office. And, now they can go ahead and, make whatever movie. And I like Tron Legacy. I was one of the rare people that did.
I did not catch that one, but I could see, especially from a technology standpoint, maybe
I'm a
why
Daft
you
Punk
would wait.
fan, so that's the other reason why, too.
But, too, I just think, like, when you wait maybe a little too long, because I think they kind of get caught up in forgetting what made the script for a movie good in the first place. I mean, how terrible was Anchorman 2? That was like the worst fucking movie I saw that entire year.
Oh, yeah, it was
it was so bad. How did they make it so bad?
Well, the problem with Beetlejuice 2 is the point I feel you're making is that they waited so long that they are just going to look to have nostalgia pops, which, the main movie we're talking about today, I feel that they did that tenfold. But, there was what they're going to do, the, daylight come, and there's, it's showtime and they're sandworms. They're going to try to be like, hey, remember when you liked this as a kid?
Well, it's the exact
because they're not going
thing.
to try anything new. They're going to be like, hey, let's get all this nostalgia flowing through you again. The one thing I think that it might have working for it is that under all that makeup, you won't realize how much Keaton's age. And like, it might be cool to be, oh, Winona Ryder, now she's probably an adult. She has a job as a photojournalist or something, because
of course she would be a photojournalist.
Yeah, probably.
That's what every goth kid who has a camera ends up being.
Or photojournalist in advertising.
Photojournalist in advertising, or
well, movies love putting people in advertising because then they can shamelessly put in product placements and just pretend it's just part of the movie. Like, we got to get this ad done for Coca-Cola. Swig, and it's like, oh well, it's just part of the movie. We're not just shamelessly.
You know what the biggest offender that is though?
What's that?
Back to the Future.
Oh yeah, Miller.
Oh
Miller
my
High
Pepsi.
Life.
Pepsi.
What was the gas station?
Pepsi Free. Remember Pepsi Free?
Yeah. What was the gas station?
Oh shit.
Was it Shell?
I think it was Texaco.
Texaco.
Oh,
Yep.
Gotcha.
Guys, all I want is a Pepsi.
A Pepsi Free. You gotta pay for a Pepsi, son.
Give me a tab. I can't give you a tab unless you order something. Just give me a Pepsi Free.
So I don't know. I just, with these, like, sometimes you can understand why the studios want to make money, but for me, I feel like logic just like falls out the window in all senses, especially when there isn't that good of a story to tell.
But as I said, with him in the makeup, it might work. With Winona Ryder, and as long as they avoid the fat man and the archer, Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin, because obviously you can hide Beetlejuice with the makeup, so he can't age because he's a ghost. Winona Ryder can, because but the thing is, Alec Baldwin looks like the dumpster that ate Alec Baldwin. He if a dumpster came.
Oh, jeez.
That was cruel.
And Gina Davis,
he slimmed down a little bit.
Gina
though.
Davis looks
he
fine.
hasn't been to his worst, but
No, Gina Davis looks
looks
right
fine,
now.
but
She
the thing
looks
is,
great.
she clearly looks 20 years older,
Well,
obviously, than she did in the movie, so it's not going to work.
Let's back it up and freeze. I mean, I would hope that if they're going to tell the story, it's just going to be Lydia and Beetlejuice.
Like the cartoon.
There's no way that they could go back to Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis's characters. They will forever haunt that house on the hill. It's where they died. They can't move. They can't go anywhere. So I mean,
maybe they invent some kind of ghost, almost like Ghostbusters type.
I mean,
transport trap.
I also would hope for storytelling reasons that they wouldn't try to continue that story because their story is over. Where I think that maybe there's more stories for, say, Beetlejuice or Lydia to tell. Yeah. I don't think that there's anything else that we need to resolve with, the original ghosts from the first movie.
So you don't think the pedophile's going to be in it?
I really don't.
Jeffrey Rush?
I really hope not.
Not Jeffrey Rush.
Oh my God, don't accuse Jeffrey Rush.
Sorry, Jeffrey Rush.
Well, he's dead. That guy's dead. He's dead.
He die? Oh.
Who?
You're talking about Lydia's father.
Yeah, the kiddie porn.
No,
the Jared Fogle of his generation.
He's dead.
What? He died?
Yes.
I really didn't think he was dead.
Jeffrey Jones.
Jeffrey
sorry,
Jones.
Jeffrey Rush.
He's dead. So, I mean, I don't know how you bring him back. Maybe you call his, agent from the other side.
Well, hey.
I mean, it is a ghost movie.
I was going to say.
I mean,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
He's not that old.
What is it with Tim Burton working with, child molesters?
Well,
and kitty porn
it has
people?
some. Okay. I'll take this to a classic scene in Ed Wood, where if you remember, Sarah Jessica Parker's character says, "All your actors are a bunch of dope and weirdos." It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. Dope heads and weirdos.
Yeah. He's totally alive.
He's alive?
By the way, you murdered him.
Okay,
seriously?
You said he was dead, and he's totally
thought he
alive.
was
I just
dead.
called Jeffrey Rush a kid fucker, and you just killed Jeffrey Jones.
Okay.
Let's see who else
Jeffrey
we can
Jones,
slander
okay,
here.
people.
So Jeffrey Jones is alive.
But he's a shitbag because he keeps getting arrested for failing to register as a sex offender.
Oh, jeez.
God love
Well,
him.
that's got to be difficult.
geez.
You don't want to knock on those doors.
Well, I guess
Hey.
you know what? That's what happens when you haven't been in anything and you're just fucking, looking at fucking kids.
So,
so
I guess it'll be
I'm
a
sorry,
while.
Jeffrey Jones. I didn't
You don't
mean
need
to say you were
apologize to
dead.
Jeffrey Jones, but I guess it'll
But
be a
you
while
are
until
a
Jeffrey
pedophile.
Jones is in hell. Speaking of hell, Brian, there's a little bit more news. Not that was a shameless segue.
Wow.
Wow, that really
Blown
was.
away by
Well,
your talent.
So, yeah, I mean, we got so deep into the Beetlejuice comment. I was going to hold this off for the next episode, but I guess we'll jump into it since you've already given me the segue. So
We
as
can
you-
always edit it up, put it in next week's episode.
No
Yeah.
one will know the difference.
No, too late. So you guys know I'm a big Hellraiser fan. I'm actually friends with Doug Bradley, who lives in Pittsburgh now, and I've been kind of tracking this whole new sequel that they just announced a couple weeks ago.
So is it a sequel, soft sequel, or soft reboot, or reboot?
It's
Or is
it's
it a prequel?
from
Or
what
prequel,
Well,
yeah.
okay. Well, it actually is, I believe, a legit sequel. It's another cash grab by Dimension Studios to kind of retain the franchise rights to it. They did this with the last one with Hellraiser Revelations. If you remember Fat Pinhead. You guys remember Fat Pinhead?
No.
I
Yeah,
do.
bloated
I like
Pinhead.
the description.
I do.
Well, they tried doing this before where they were like, oh, well, Doug Bradley's not going to be in it and he's Pinhead, so we're going to go ahead. We can just throw anyone in that outfit and, they'll be fine. Well, you know what? They threw someone in there and the guy looks like fucking Fat Pinhead. So,
They tried that with
and
Nightmare on Elm
I'll
Street,
throw
too.
up, just a quick one here so you guys can see it.
They
but-
often make that mistake. They think, oh, these horror movies, anybody can play these characters. And they tried it with Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and they're like, oh, I guess only Robert Englund can do this.
Yeah, but anyway, the point is
Take that,
that
Rorschach. You sucked as Freddy.
the point is that you see that
Oh dear.
bloated Pinhead.
I mean, bee stung Pinhead.
Yeah.
Are they bee stings instead?
Well,
maybe.
No, but it's just
his also like utterly fucking vacant expression is very concerning.
Yeah, it clearly is not terrifying. No. But the point is that they just announced this new movie's coming out. Which here's the thing that gets me is they announce the new movie's come out and then they say we're filming in like 2 weeks, and then it's we finished filming. So it's like, what the fuck type of movie is done in a matter of weeks?
The shooting in a matter of weeks, that no bueno. Like, usually like movies that are actually good where they have that little shooting time, they're like, oh my god, it was the most intense thing I've ever done.
Well, we referenced Ed Wood a minute ago, and there was that obviously meant to be very funny line in the movie where Martin Landau's Bela Lugosi was like, normally it takes weeks to shoot these things, but Eddie can knock out 5 or 6 scenes in a day. And it's like, clearly this is, when they're working that quick, it's like, oh, well, they're not really caring too much about the quality of this project.
But the point is that this new movie called Hellraiser Judgment, that's going to be starring Heather Langenkamp. You remember Heather Langenkamp?
Oh, yeah. We talk about that all the time. Of like old horror
she was like
bands and everything.
She was a fine wine. She got better with age.
Didn't
she?
I think she did too.
Like New Nightmare, I was like, oh.
It's been a while since New Nightmare. She still looks pretty good in my opinion.
That was very sensual, John.
Hope the mic didn't get that.
But so it's actually being directed by Gary Turnicliffe, who was the special effects makeup artist on all the Hellraiser movies, starting from, I believe, number 3, and I'll definitely on Bloodlines, so number 4. But he stepped into the director chair, and that's kind of hit mixed results, because there are some fans like me who are saying no Pinhead, no movie, and then there are people out there who are like, well, remember the No More Souls YouTube video that he made? Because he actually a couple of years back he made this YouTube video that was supposed to be like a fan film. And the whole premise of it was called No More Souls, and it was supposed to depict a Pinhead that was old and just tired of everything, and actually was going to like kill himself by opening up the box and taking for himself. Okay. Ooh. And it was really good, like really good. And Gary Turnicliffe actually played Pinhead as this older Pinhead. And I think some people think, oh, well, it's going to be kind of like that. But then there are people like me who actually see what transpired between Turnicliffe, who's a friend of Doug Bradley's, and him and Doug Bradley himself. And this is a new interview that actually came out. It's on the Clive Barker podcast. To go ahead and say wink, wink. We listen to the Clive Barker podcast.
Not as good as ours.
Oh my god, John.
Clive Barker.
So this is a quote, and it basically says that Doug Bradley was given Gary Turnicliffe approached Doug Bradley with the whole part in Hellraiser Judgment, and he basically said you have to sign this non-disclosure agreement and all this other bullshit and move very quickly on it. And most people, when they're just handed and said you can't talk about shit, at all, about this movie, they get kind of cagey. And I guess that's kind of what happened with Doug, is that he was like, this is pretty fast. I'm not going to necessarily move on it. And the funny thing is that he never got any response back from any of the line producers, from Gary himself, from anyone else in the movie. So basically what this new article says is that no one at Dimension, actually gave a shit if Doug was in the movie or not. That they basically did it as we have to do lip service to the fans so we can say that we talked to Doug. And that's kind of what this is giving off, is that type of vibe.
Shitty.
It is shitty. So he says it was that they really just wanted a recast, apparently. And I mean, I can understand that, but the problem is that you just saw the bloated fat Pinhead. Do you think they're going to be able to
you
top that, or
you can recast Michael Myers, and they did just about every movie. You can recast Jason, which they did till they got to Kane Hodder, and he kind of, that was his meal ticket. But
whose appearance is obscured, of course.
But when it's Fred Krueger, when it's Pinhead, we all associate a very particular person with those roles.
Well, we need their face.
It's not just the face. It's deeper than that. It's the personality. These actors, be it Robert Englund, be it Doug Bradley, Even be Warwick Davis for, the Leprechaun. They bring...
A friend with weed is a friend indeed.
But they bring something to the table other than just a specific face or a specific voice. They bring a personality. And, you saw this with, Rorschach playing, Pinhead, not Pinhead, but, Freddy Krueger.
Right.
And it was fucking terrible. No one bought it. Mm-hmm. They're like, I would rather just have Robert Englund, spout some jokes, in the movie than this.
Right.
I don't mean to get on a tangent, but I think there was a little more to it. The makeup was terrible. He was one-dimensional. He wasn't funny like the Freddy before. It was one of those, we're going to remake it, but we're going to take something that had a little bit of, camp to it and make it deathly serious, like the RoboCop remake. So I think there's a little bit more into it. I don't think the fans would have accepted it anyways because, Robert Englund is it or nothing. But it also, they didn't help themselves at all by that just being a horrible, horrible attempt at a remake.
Right. And but the thing is that this new interview that was done, it was actually done at Horror Hound weekend over this past Sunday. And, it really just kind of, tells me that this movie is just going to be more of the fucking same. And that, I already knew that was going to be the case. You don't make a movie in 2 fucking weeks and then say, oh, it's done. Guess what? It's going to be out this time. And expect it to be any good. You
can't make student films that fast.
It's going to be great.
Yeah. So that's just news and movies today. So we're going to move on to our big topic.
I was going to do a shameless transition there. Oh, man.
Nope.
Well, you had the shameless transition already with the hell thing, so.
Yes, it did.
Yeah. Don't get greedy.
I'm full of them.
Don't get greedy.
I'm full of it, as most
So, what are we talking about here today?
Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars.
No copyright infringement intended. Disney, please don't sue.
Yeah,
The
right.
Force Awakens.
So, where do we start? Do we want to talk about
let's start first with the fact that the movie just got pirated today.
Yeah, so
250,000 downloads over the course of 24 hours.
Sorry, y'all.
And the movie, and it's a Blu-ray copy. We're not talking DVD quality here. We're talking legit 1080p, copy.
Oh yeah.
I feel bad for Disney. That movie did not make much in the theaters.
So I think what we should do is talk about our background / relationship with Star Wars.
You mean our Star Wars bona fides?
I'm not saying in the sense of cred. Let's just talk about where we come from with it.
Okay.
So Brian, you start. Just talk to us about Star Wars.
Well, I have been a Star Wars nerd since about the age of, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6. Started off, kind of in the Jedi camp. Thought that was great. But as you get older, you start to see things aren't as clean and good, and then you start to move towards the Sith side. So I'd say I probably am more of a Sith now. I do have a lightsaber mounted on my wall. It is a Darth Vader toy one. Okay, that's just there, just for you never know when someone wants to battle.
It's true.
So and in college, myself and a friend of mine, we would do phantom dueling at night across RMU's campus. We were known as the Phantom Duelers. We actually, and this is probably sacrilegious to those religious listeners out there, but on Halloween night, one year, we actually decided to lightsaber battle. I was dressed in actually, it was a Cenobite costume that I had made, and my friend was dressed in a Jedi costume that his grandmother had made years ago. He's a scrawny, skinny guy. So it still fit, even though it was made for him in high school.
Booyah.
And we were battling around the chapel at RMU. And the chapel has glass windows. So everyone there is in mass for Halloween, and you see this red lightsaber and this green lightsaber running around battling each other.
Please explain Halloween Mass to me.
I don't know. It was some kind of religious thing.
I feel like Halloween's the one night that's not for the Christians.
Was Kirk Cameron leading that?
Yeah. I think it was more or less like a All Saints type thing.
Oh, well, that's fine.
But maybe it was we need sanctuary from, the goblins out there, that sort of thing.
Yeah, Brian, you didn't want to offend anybody, but those tools can go suck it. I don't care. I'm going to be the one.
We're trying to build listeners here, John, okay?
The opinions of one co-host do not reflect the opinions of the other two. No offense intended.
I've already offended them by saying, I disrupted Halloween Mass by lightsaber battling around
and
church.
I probably offended people by not knowing what the fuck Halloween Mass is. So
that's okay. That's
equal
okay.
crimes.
Equal crimes.
Okay.
But yeah, that's kind of my Star Wars bona fides. If you want to talk about, do I like this new Star Wars? Just to start off.
Oh,
okay.
sit down.
We're holding off on that. Cool. All right, so that's my bona fides.
You go, Professor of Star Warsology.
On to me. Oh dear. Okay, so one of the first things that John had said to me when we were still dating and not married yet was that he never thought that he would end up with someone who was a bigger Star Wars nerd than him.
Or a woman that likes Star Wars in general.
You're welcome. So I first saw the movies when I was 11. Mm-hmm. Obsessed immediately. Empire Strikes Back was the movie that made me want to be a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. And so then I decided to just deeply immerse myself in the extended universe as much as possible. I got nerd cred for days. I read every single novel that was available, probably up to 98, 99. Mm-hmm. Read all of them of the extended universe. I was a Jedi one year for Halloween. I probably have the prop saber in my closet at my mother's house somewhere. And
what was it made out of?
It was just like a plastic toy one.
It wasn't anything I didn't know. We're not talking the Force effects lightsabers here.
No. It was just like a plastic toy from the special editions coming out and stuff.
Cone, like a waffle cone and dildo or something like a little tiny one.
That's what I think of when I think of lightsaber. I think of waffle cone and dildo for sure.
It's a smaller one, but it's what you do with the lightsaber that counts.
It's definitely how you use it for sure. I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. I mean, at this point it's a part of who I am. When you do have like a really strong fandom, I think when you're young it's hard and you try to hide it maybe a little bit, but once you get a little bit of distance from it, your nerddoms are what make you awesome. So you embrace them as an adult. So it's a long relationship for me. The only relationship I've had longer than the marriage that I'm in.
I know you probably flicked it to Han more than you have I.
Hey, Star Wars fucks better than you, baby. I'm sorry. Somebody had to say it.
Well, George Lucas fucked us with the prequels.
He really did. Still not forgiven.
All right, well,
still sore.
It's bizarre for me to say that I apparently probably like Star Wars the least in this room, and I fucking love Star Wars. I just think compared to you two, it's like a religion. I absolutely love Star Wars, but I would put it in the same boat for me growing up as the Indiana Jones and Batman and a lot of other just big time fan. Back to the Future was a big one for me. I mean, I absolutely love Star Wars. I ate it up. I saw the George Lucas reimaginings in the movie theater. I had the tapes, I had the DVD, and then the Blu-ray with the added "no" at the end by Lord Vader. No. So I mean, I absolutely adored Star Wars, but I kind of wanted to go last for the point of I initially boycotted this movie and tried to avoid it.
You didn't want to see it.
You really did not.
You really didn't want to see it, and you didn't have to.
And allow me to explain where I was coming from. And people might say, well, what do you think George Lucas did with his shameless cash grab of making toy commercials with those horrible 3 prequels? You saw those. I didn't like that Disney got a hold of it and was turning it 100% into an assembly line. And people are like, well, what if it's good? That was never my concern. It could have been fantastic. It could have been terrible. It didn't make a difference to me that they were but the fact that they were Disney of all companies was going to pump these off one every other year for the next 50 years. And to me, Star Wars was an enclosed story. It was the story of Luke Skywalker, New Hope, Empire, Jedi. Should have been left there. I understand George Lucas, even if it was for sinister reasons for him to make his prequels.
Well, is it fair
he
to
always
say,
kind of
too,
said that
the attitude with those is, number one, we were young, so we didn't know any better.
We didn't listen.
We saw them, we didn't know any better.
We didn't listen.
But no matter how terrible the prequels were, it's fair to say that George Lucas created them. There's something to be said for that. Other than Disney having a hold of the franchise.
Here's where I do disagree with the whole George Lucas created them so he can, ruin everything.
Oh, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that no matter how shitty they were and how much I wanted to hang myself after seeing all of them, at least it wasn't some faceless corporate entity that had a hold of
Lucasfilm was the faceless corporate entity.
But Disney's crimes, I think, are much more significant. I think I'm just saying to your point that you have a problem with this movie because the ownership is with Disney. A huge...
And they're not making these because they think that it's more of a story to tell. And it falls in the same line, just to finish my point, of Terminator sequels and Jurassic Park sequels, and God forbid if they ever made a Back to the Future sequel. They're not making these for...
I think they're going to do a reboot.
I've heard Robert Zemeckis will kill himself by lighting himself on fire in protest if they try to do it. And I hope he sticks to that. But, it's just... It's a shame.
Zemeckis, apparently.
No.
You want him to die.
That's pretty hard
for the cause
there.
of there not being a Justin Bieber-led Back to the Future film, which has been rumors. But, for them to... And Star Wars is the most sacred of all these things. And for them to be like, let's make 100 of them until the novelty wears off, to me, was disgusting. And I didn't want to be a part of it.
And I supported your opinion. I mean... of all things, I wasn't like I was some girl that needed to be taken to the movies. I had always had an interest because I think it's a complicated relationship for me because I think we're all going to, start talking about the movie and disagree at some point. But the only point that I really want to bring home is that my only hope for this movie was that I wanted it to make me feel 11 years old again. I have an emotional relationship with this, and I understand that.
But don't you think that's exactly what Disney wanted? They just wanted to attack your emotions and not your brain.
Of course, they wanted to go after me because of the sentimentality and the nostalgia I feel for this thing that I love, of course. But are they going to... Does it matter if I go see it? Like, does it make a difference either way? Like, my ticket could have been somebody else's, I
think it matters, because it's shameless exploitation of emotions.
But I didn't mind because what they were doing was giving me this thing that, really... was my only friend in junior high, this universe, you know what I mean? I can freely admit the nerdery that I was immersed in at the time. I didn't see daylight for 9 months when I was reading these books and learning about all the characters and just I was sucked into it.
The way that I see it with the commercialism, and that's really what we're talking about here.
Definitely.
Is that there's no escaping it nowadays. Every movie, every summer, or even now with Star Wars premiering in the winter, it's going to be winter blockbusters now, where they're going to have to just to compete. It's no longer we have to understand here that Star Wars the original came out at a time when the independent filmmaker had power. Okay. You had Easy Rider coming out around the same time. You had the Stanley Kubrick films coming out around the same time. These were auteur movies. And Star Wars is an auteur movie. It's just that, it is, and here's the thing. It's an auteur movie until George Lucas decided to turn it into the cash cow. He was the one who created, basically, the structure of the summer blockbuster. Yeah, he created the merchandising.
Cusp, you know what I mean?
And I think that's... Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And I think that's actually, as much as I love Star Wars, and I think this is going to be a reviled statement, I actually kind of despise Steven Spielberg and George Lucas for essentially ending that auteur run that you had mentioned of great artistic achievements, even in the field of science fiction and horror, because those of which are considered pornographic type of, genres by, the snooty among us, they were really kind of going above and beyond in those two fields. But then here comes these two guys who realize we can make a lot of money by appealing right to the middle, not the stupid people, not the highly intelligent, but right to the middle. And they realize these movies can make a lot of money. And then there was the end of a generation of thoughtful renaissance.
And I don't think we've ever recovered from that. I think it's only
agree.
balloons.
I don't think we have either.
Star Wars kind of killed the intelligent.
But films. That's kind of my point, and that's kind of to the point of saying, you're getting angry at Disney, but Disney is basically continuing a trend that has been going on since George Lucas created Star Wars. You didn't have action figures for movies being sold until Star Wars came out. You know, you really didn't. They didn't really exist. I mean, you maybe had a couple one-offs here and there, but you didn't have the frenzy of you've got to get the special certificate for your collection of Star Wars action figures because we ran the fuck out, and get it for Christmas. That was created. That was a manufactured crisis because he knew that people would pay for that little fucking certificate. And that was the point where he realized that the merchandising is more powerful than the film.
Well, too, isn't it a perfect situation to be in? Because, I mean, if you look at historically, I mean, Star Wars was a very difficult movie to get made. Because when you get to the prequels, yes, you had Lucasfilm, you had ILM. Neither of those things fucking existed when the first Star Wars movie came out. And George Lucas almost died making it because he had a heart attack in the middle of it. He was shooting here, he was shooting in England. I mean, the whole thing was
Tunisia
a fucking mess.
Well.
And he had, exactly. And he had no way of really knowing if this gamble was going to pay off. When he did get into the merchandising, I mean, how perfect is that? You make your purchase order with your manufacturer or whatever vendor you're working through. You order so much product. If it sells, great. I mean, if it doesn't, great. If it has this unprecedented demand, then you go to the little fucking certificates or whatever. I mean, he was in a position where he couldn't lose there.
Right, but I'm just making the point that you can't really... I don't begrudge Disney, is what I'm saying. Because all they're doing is continuing what Lucas started.
I mean, is it
now
monstrous?
the only thing I will say is that they have kind of started to move back to the auteur and story mattering with Force Awakens, in my opinion. I saw the prequels and I saw how fucking terrible they were and how they quite literally were pretty much Batman and Robin with a Star Wars veneer. Okay, everything in the prequels
was bad.
But I'm just saying, everything in the prequels was designed to sell a toy. Between the Jango Fett action figure and the Jango Fett Slave One, and this different colored lightsabers for every fucking Jedi, and all this bullshit that was basically made to sell toys. Now,
it wasn't the first time. If you think back to Return of the Jedi, they're never once referred to as Ewoks, but we all knew what they were called.
Right.
Well, there were spin-offs, too. Again, you can call those cash grabs, if you will. But there was
we don't have to talk about Ewok Adventure.
But but that was something that existed
series?
afterwards. You know what I mean? Like, that was something that was its own entity. For that as well.
Right.
I mean, what I think the problem is with the merchandising now is the whole scandal of how the main fucking character of the movie, Rey, was excluded from all of the merchandise. Like, this is what I don't understand. Like, they clearly put a woman in the lead because they wanted all the audience that they could get, because they knew people that love Star Wars would see it anyway, but they wanted people's girlfriends to go to the fucking movie, right?
Yeah.
Because not all of them are as awesome as me and like Star Wars.
Well, it's the same thing with pornography.
You know.
The pornography, they aim it towards men. However, one of the bigger audiences watching porn are women.
Mm-hmm. But for them to ignore the main character of the film in the merchandising, totally asinine.
Well, that's why they don't jizz in the hair. Because women would be like, oh no!
Well,
she just got that highlighted.
That's the thing you just said. All right.
Speaking of jizz in the hair, though.
Yeah, go.
I think Brian has a point.
I did have a point. He kind of set me off base with the jizz in the hair. But the thing is, and this is really the funny thing, is that you can see how big of a fucking prude Disney is, because about a month or two before Force Awakens came out, they got rid of the Black Series slave girl Leia action figure because they said it was quote unquote too revealing.
Well, I think also the PC culture kind of attacked that, like, oh yeah,
but it's the same sort of thing as
yeah,
but like that's part of the fucking movie, okay?
I mean, she was treated as a slave. I mean,
for 5 minutes.
It's only that costume having been objectified for the last 30 years that's the problem. Like lots of fanboys spanking it to that image is what made it,
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
3 times the charm.
Three times you've been able to use that sound effect appropriately.
But I think we were talking a lot about merchandise, and I really want to.
You want to dive right into it?
I want to get to what Brian just said. a couple minutes ago. 'Cause
okay.
I actually couldn't disagree more.
See, we're all gonna I think we're just
gonna be a
you
fight.
and I disagree. I
Fight
know.
tonight.
I know, big guy.
About the tour ship. I really felt that this movie was a shot-by-shot remake guised as a sequel by a director for hire. People love jizzing over J.J. Abrams, but quite frankly, I think you could have put any remotely competent director into that role with all the money and special effects and all the backing you had with it, and it would have been just as successful.
So you're saying he's remotely competent?
I'm saying that it's still an assembly line movie. They just learned from those prequels exactly what not to do.
Well,
But isn't that kind of what you want? Isn't that kind of what you want? You want them to learn from their mistakes?
But they didn't learn from their mistakes. They just learned what not to do. They didn't learn what to do. What they did was copy the original film to attack our nostalgia, and also, this was successful. Let's do it again. Let's pretend to call it a sequel when it really is just a remake.
Well, okay. All right, so we can get into that discussion. Number one, I disagree with you about J.J. Abrams. I think that they really...
Well, somebody likes Alias and Lost.
And you are so dismissive of that, but I'm sorry. Yeah. I think that
I'm not being dismissive. I'm just saying you're a big fan of his TV work.
Right, but I'm saying, like, there's something to that. I mean, he has a lot of television shows under his belt. Now, I didn't watch Felicity, but that's another one of his big ones as well.
I have a penis, so I didn't watch Felicity
Exactly,
either.
so I get it. But, like, when it comes to, to something like Alias, there's a lot of episodes in that series where you can go shot by shot and you could put it in the front of a film theory classroom and be like, this is why this works. This is what he did that works. I mean, the guy knows what he's doing. And I think when it came time to give somebody Star Wars, the fact that he had already proved himself in the Star Trek franchise, I think that it made sense.
Except for number 2.
Oh, let's not talk about number 2.
We don't need to talk about
it. It was a number 2.
It was a number 2.
Well,
so,
sorry.
But I'm just saying, I think that they did know what they were doing when they put him in charge. Yeah. Now, do I think this is going to be the most amazing film of this trilogy? No. John's right. It took a lot from A New Hope, but I mean, A New Hope is not the strongest film of the first trilogy.
It's in fact, I think, the weakest.
I don't know. I get up with the
Jedi's kind of a turd.
I love Jedi. Jedi is my favorite.
Is that because was it your favorite when you were a little kid?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you still looking with the nostalgia glasses?
No. There are parts about it I dislike. Honestly, the Ewoks, kind of think those are fucking stupid. I mean, I like it for the fact that it basically puts a period on the whole series.
Agreed.
Okay?
And I'd say that's the biggest
flaw of Empire. And it kind of brings
Empire,
everything.
Which is my favorite.
I love the opening when you're in Jabba's palace and that whole sequence there. I love the fact that you're now seeing a Luke Skywalker who is powerful and is a Jedi Knight, and he's a full-fledged Jedi at that point.
Not to get too sidetracked here, but
that's
we're
more
talking about the newest film, but if that whole scene in Jabba's palace hadn't been in the movie, would it still be the same movie though? Was that scene even totally necessary?
Yeah, I think
to bring
there's
Han Solo back into the movie.
There is a lot to it.
There's a lot to it because too, you see Leia going undercover, and I think that that's important. That's an important element to things, and the fact that.
But what repercussions does that even have?
Well, no, it's
grow from
well,
it.
no.
I think it's an illustration of how Luke is different, very different from the first movie. This is his plan. He's put all these chess pieces into play, and it all pays off at the end, and everything paid off exactly as Luke planned.
The other thing too is that it basically solves a strand that was left from Empire. What happened to Han Solo after he was frozen in carbonite? Mm-hmm. So you had to tie that up somehow. If you didn't have that, you're just like, hey, Han Solo's here. Let's go ahead and just continue with the story. Right. You had to have that strand tied up.
And two, I think that Luke tying it up is really important to the whole franchise.
Definitely.
He's not some whiny little bastard complaining about power converters anymore. Like, he's a grown-ass man.
No, he's not.
You know what I mean? Like, he has the commanding presence of a real Jedi. Now we know his training's not complete until he confronts Vader. We find that out in a little bit into the movie, but he's a grown-ass adult at this point. Definitely. That has a plan, and he not only is what happened to Han Solo, not only is that question answered, but like Luke rescues him. Like, it's his plan with all of the pieces in play. It's
a pretty bad plan, though.
It's not. I mean,
it's not the greatest of plans, but it's still a good plan.
It isn't what I would have come up with, but it works.
Yeah,
and I think too, what we tend to forget is that the original Return of the Jedi was a much better film than the one with the special edition bullshit shoehorned in. Oh my god. So yeah, I think that that's clouding a lot of people's popular opinions of Jedi. It's not my favorite film, but I could see how it could be someone's, especially if you take all that other shit out.
So getting back to Force Awakens.
Oh yeah.
Okay, since that's the movie we're talking about here. We love Jedi. And we might spend
I could talk about Star Wars for 7 hours. It's fine.
But for me, just my opinion of Force Awakens is I thought that, yes, John, it was very similar on a lot of levels to New Hope. Definitely thought that. But I think they had to do that to kind of reestablish the fan base and kind of say, hey, we're not really looking at the prequels. This is going to be nothing like the prequels. Don't worry about it. Because a lot of people were worried. They were terrified that it was going to be just a repeat of the fucking prequels. And, I mean, as a fan, I was satisfied. I mean, I'm not going to tell you it was the best fucking movie in the whole series, because it isn't. I'd have to say if you're going to go there, it's either between Return or Empire, in my opinion. Most people would say Empire.
I think New Hope is also better than Force Awakens. But
well, either way, I found that The Force Awakens fixed a lot of the problems that we had with the prequels. We had problems with wooden acting. I didn't see any wooden acting in this thing. I saw characters that were fully fleshed out, that had emotion. Okay? That's something that we haven't seen before. Fucking Hayden Christensen didn't have fucking emotion in the entire 2 movies he was in. He was pretty much Darth Vader before he was Darth Vader. Okay,
yeah. I don't know if we can blame that on the writing or Hayden Christensen.
I blame that on the directing. Honestly,
yeah.
Big fat slug sitting in his chair drinking his coffee. Like, let's do it on green screen. So I don't have to get up.
And too, John and I have talked about that before. Like, just in our personal time, like in the prequels, everything was shot on a green screen. And if you didn't have the actor, like another actor with you, what the fuck do you have to work with? Like a goddamn green tennis ball?
Point.
Like, come on.
That's the whole point. But this one didn't have that. They went to legit places and they filmed in legit places. They made it tactile. They made it realistic.
They did do that right. But I felt the characters were a little wooden. I mean, maybe
what character did you think was wooden? Kylo Ren's not that's not one you need to mention.
Why?
He's playing fucking Kylo Ren.
I really thought I really was worried when I knew Adam Driver was in it, and when I finally figured out who he would have been. I thought Harrison Ford was fine. You know, I was actually a little disappointed.
Kill me off and I'll be in it. Spoiler alert.
I was, if they don't know by now.
If they don't know by now, they should just stop listening.
I don't know. I was a little disappointed in Carrie Fisher's performance. It felt very restrained and very safe. I felt that when she was Princess Leia, in the first movies, there was something so fiery about Leia, something so sassy. I mean, maybe that was just me being upset at seeing like this hero of mine as like an old woman. Well, but I'll admit that.
I think they didn't give her enough.
They didn't really give her a lot to work with.
I don't think she wanted that much, but personally, I found Mark Hamill's performance to be unbelievable. I mean, with the way he turned around and looked like, bitch,
come
what you
on.
doing in my house?
Are you going to tell me that you did not get a little bit of a glow in the belly
here's
when you
the
saw
thing.
Luke Skywalker
It looked
around?
like Luke Skywalker gave up his Jedi training for like Sonic cheeseburgers. Though it's like he's got that rusky old beard.
Oh my god,
he was not fat.
He was not fat.
Wrong.
He's like, hey, I just got this really great IPA. I've been drinking it for the last 6 months. Put on some pounds. Here's your training. Go get me more beer.
So, okay.
Then you'll be a Jedi.
Full disclosure, and I don't think I've even told you this, Brian. So, like, when we went to see the movie, like I said, all I wanted was to feel like I was 11 again.
Did you feel like you were 12?
I felt like I was 11 again. I cried through a lot of the movie for, like, no fucking reason.
I think the Han Solo death caused a little...
Not even that.
Yeah,
It was all of it was very emotional, and that's how I have to understand and process it, because there's the cerebral part of me that studied film, but then there's the 11-year-old child inside of me that, like, when I saw a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I fucking burst into tears. Like, I can't explain that.
I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps.
I mean, too. The hairs on the back of my neck went up.
I mean, obviously it's Disney now, but who didn't miss the 20th Century Fox?
It was weird.
Part of it.
Was weird.
It was strange.
It seemed weird. Yes, I will agree with that.
But yeah, I think we're riding a lot of nostalgia here. I think this one will still be beloved, but I think the rose-colored glasses will wear off over a couple of years. But
do I want to see what comes next?
Yeah,
yes.
Here's what I think we'll have. We'll have to really see how these further sequels go, and that'll be the real deciding factor on whether this is something of value or if it's Disney cash grabbing. Like if by episode 12 Goofy is the new Darth Vader.
They're not doing an episode 12. They're stopping.
They're just doing two more
7,
after
8,
this
9,
one.
and that's it of the main series.
Well, they're doing Toy Story 4 now, so I mean, as if they make enough money.
I think that what would happen after this more is like prequels and spin-offs.
The Han Solo,
I'm very
the Boba
concerned
Fett,
about the Han Solo movies. There's a great trilogy in the extended universe of books that they really should have used because they're fucking sweet.
Well, talking about assembly lines and making as much money as possible, if you really think about why didn't they use the extended universe? Simple. You can read those stories ahead of time. The whole appeal to this movie was, oh, let's dissect the trailer. Who was that? What was that going on? Why is there a black stormtrooper? Well, what's going on? What's this? What's that? And
the actual reason that they nixed the extended universe was primarily because there are storylines upon storylines all over the place. Because that's what Lucasfilm did. They were like, okay, we'll let all these people. And I think it's great, but the problem is that when you're trying to, create something past 4, 7, 8, 9, you got a lot. Like you said, how many books?
Yeah, I mean, and I agree. As
I understand
as
that.
I was, I mean, I get it. I mean, too, I imagine the logistics and legalities of the thing are also a mess. When other people have invented these characters, what kind of copyrights or like buyouts do you offer those people? All of them authors. How does that even fucking work?
But I think that they are borrowing from those things. Like, do you guys ever watch the Rebels series?
No, I want to get into it.
Okay, it's really good, but they basically are now borrowing from Knights of the Old Republic.
Okay.
So, like the Sith homeworld in Knights of the Old Republic, they mentioned it in a recent episode.
Oh, interesting.
So that's telling me that they are aware because anything in the Rebels series is considered new canon. So it's set in stone.
Okay.
So they did that on purpose. They are still they're looking at Clone Wars. That's considered canon. Mm-hmm. The Force, it was the Force Unleashed video game series.
Oh, that video game.
That's not considered canon though.
Really?
Which I think that is a mistake because there was a lot of good in those games, especially because it kind of gives you an idea of what type of person Darth Vader was and that he had a secret apprentice and everything, and kind of the beginnings of the Rebel Alliance.
Sure.
But that's not considered canon. That's considered the Legends title. But I see that they are borrowing from things that they found in the extended universe.
Well, if they could borrow some goddamn Mara Jade, I'd be the happiest girl in the world.
I would not be surprised if that was pulled for 8.
I mean, I really think that we need more strong female characters in the universe. I think to have a mostly male cast, even though the male character was female, I think that's an antiquated notion that the films need to get away from, for sure. That was one thing that did disappoint me. There was not a lot of female representation, even though that badass main stormtrooper was female, and then we had Rey, who was the main character.
Captain Toy?
Do you know the whole
How dare you? You mean Captain Outfit. That cape
do you know the backstory behind that outfit? Mm-mm. The backstory behind it is that Darth Sidious used the Queen Amidala's old but her spaceships. Okay. And crafted that armor from those recycled ships.
What? That's mind-blowing.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
If you look on the actual, I guess it's somewhere in the novelization or the comic books that came out.
Oh.
That they mentioned that. So that's pulling from stuff that is pretty interesting.
Dude, I haven't read a good novelization of a movie in a really long time. Yeah. They're so good.
Are you sure you want more female representation if it comes entirely out of cynicism by studio executives? The whole reason the main character is a woman in this movie.
If I cared about studio cynicism, why would I have fucking seen the movie in the first place?
Right.
Their motives don't matter to me. What matters to me is that a little girl can see Star Wars and find representation for herself.
Okay.
Because I'm an adult.
Personally, I think because of this fiasco with the Star Wars Force Awakens Monopoly thing in particular. That's what you're talking about. The fact that they didn't have a Rey, figure to go with it.
Well, there were big box sets of all the characters, and she wasn't in it.
Yes.
Like, what the fuck, guys?
But I think because of that,
just stupid,
and also because of the fact that already with Marvel, they're getting flack because Black Widow isn't featured in any of the Avengers shit that they sell.
I just don't know how many shitty, stupid decisions these companies have to make before they start correcting it.
I think these controversies, though, will, basically as a business decision, force them to start to include more stuff directed towards women.
Well, I sincerely fucking hope so.
When Jurassic Park back in '93, there was no Lex action figure, but there was a Tim one.
Yeah.
Tim was way more annoying than... Well, actually, no, they were both equally annoying.
So, I mean, I know we talked about the film in general. Does anybody want to nerd out with me?
I want to nerd out for a little bit.
Okay.
Who do you think Snoke is?
I don't know.
Do you want to know my theory?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Here's my theory. I wish if I had a cigarette, I'd pop one over. Like, okay, let me tell you what my theory is. Okay. My theory is that, and I've heard this from a couple people. I used to think that it was Darth Plagueis. I don't think it's that anymore. Mm-hmm. Darth Plagueis, if you're not familiar with Star Wars lore, is the person who trained Palpatine. Mm-hmm. I originally thought that, but I thought that would be too obscure of a character to include. So I started looking more at, for example, Star Wars Rebels. Mm-hmm. And them saying that Rebels was going to start to tie in with stuff from Force Awakens. Oh. I think that Snoke is one of the main characters from Rebels.
Interesting.
I think he either is the main character of Ezra Bridger.
Okay. Who
is he's a young kid in this story. He's a Jedi. Mm-hmm. He is a Force sensitive. He's being trained by Kanan. Who is the other a person, a Padawan who survived the Purge, and I think either Snoke is either Ezra Bridger or he's Kanan. I think I'm leaning more towards Ezra Bridger because of the fact that in the series they've already kind of pointed that he is easily susceptible to the dark side.
Interesting.
And that my theory is that after that Ezra would have the Rebels takes place 5 years before A New Hope. So he's already met Princess Leia, for example, because Princess Leia makes an appearance in Rebels.
Okay? Oh, interesting. Okay. I gotta start watching that.
You gotta start watching
that
stuff.
Sounds so good.
But I think what happens is Ezra turns to the dark side because his friends on the Ghost, the ship that he's on, including Kanan and all these other people, are either killed, and that in that loss, he turns to the dark side. And in an episode that's coming up, I think it's actually this week or next week, you find out that a old master starts teaching him. Ooh. This old master is widely believed to be Darth Maul.
Okay.
The idea, I think, is that he fights through the war. After the war ends, he trains with Luke Skywalker to become a fully fledged Jedi Knight.
Okay.
He meets Ben Solo.
Okay.
And in that meeting, decides to train him.
I've never put it together before. Ben Solo. I've never actually said the full name in my head before.
Yeah, dude.
Ben Solo then starts, becoming his thing. Maybe in the battle that where the Knights of Ren slaughter all the Luke Skywalker's Jedi, Ezra Bridger or Kanan, either one of the two, becomes horribly scarred in a battle with Luke Skywalker.
Interesting.
And that is how he becomes Snoke. That's my theory.
Interesting.
Now,
Quiet, Snoke. Sorry.
Now, the other idea, too, is that they've already said that Benicio del Toro will be in... This is why I say it could be either Ezra Bridger or Kanan.
Okay.
They've already said that Benicio del Toro will be the villain in Episode 8.
Oh.
Now, Benicio del Toro looks like an older version of Ezra Bridger.
How about that?
So, my theory is that you've either got Ezra Bridger as Snoke or Kanan is Snoke. Those because the idea, the main thing with Rebels is people are saying, how the fuck did these two Jedi survive through the original series without being known by Yoda? Well, you find out through this season that Yoda already has communicated with Ezra Bridger. So that means when Yoda says in Empire that he's the last Jedi, that means that he thinks that they're dead.
Oh.
So that's telling me a couple things. It's telling me that something happened to them. Either they're dead or they've turned to the dark side.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're just dead to him.
So that's kind of my theory.
That's true.
The other theory I heard is that it could be
Dead to me, they
Palpatine.
are.
But honestly, I think that's kind of a cop-out.
That seems unlikely, I feel. That seems unlikely.
Yeah.
What about Rey? What do you think about her?
I think she is more than likely Luke Skywalker's daughter.
Really?
Yeah.
I think she's a Kenobi.
See, I've heard that too because
You
a
just
lot of
don't wanna
people
think
are
of
like,
Luke getting his whistle wet.
Oh no, I've thought many times
No,
about
but-
Luke getting
but-
his whistle wet. I'm sorry. That's
this,
neither
and
here
then,
nor there.
here's why I think that she is a Skywalker. Because I think they're going to borrow things from the Mara Jade story.
Really? Like
I
what?
think that maybe the Mara Jade they pull, whoever it's going to be, whether they call her Mara Jade
Right.
or a new name, I think she's the one who's going to be British.
Interesting. Do you think that they would work in anything about the Emperor's hand? I mean, that's like the huge part of Mara Jade's
I don't
character.
know. But I'm just saying the idea, and you kind of saw this with, they borrowed the whole Ben Solo thing from, the stuff from Jason Solo.
Right,
From the
yeah.
extent
It's
series.
true.
And that's what I'm saying. They're borrowing things that they think work.
Right.
And I don't think it's out of the realm for them to say, well, we're going to borrow the fact that Luke Skywalker had a wife.
Right.
And maybe we'll add something where he had a daughter.
Well, only the prequels
And
really
that-
hinted at you couldn't get it on. If you were
Well,
a Jedi.
honestly, that is the dumbest fucking thing ever for
And
the
I don't
Jedis.
understand that either. But
Did
what
they
I-
not
Considering
learn?
that
Did
if
they
you-
not learn anything from the Catholic Church?
But yeah, but
Well,
I mean, what
consider,
I'm
if you
thinking-
if you're a Jedi and you have a kid, they're like a gazillion times more powerful than you. Like, this sounds like that's a way to make Jedis.
Yeah,
Well, I think that
mean,
might have been their fear.
Yeah.
It could. I mean, that could be it. What I think is the most compelling evidence is the fact that yes, Rey was called to the instrument of Luke Skywalker, the old lightsaber or whatever, but that lightsaber was in Ben Kenobi's possession for years. It was a part of, he's the one that gave it to Luke. And in the visions that she has, there was a lot of cool stories about like how Frank Oz came in to do the voices for Yoda for that. They were able to...
Ewan McGregor came in for it, too.
Ewan came in, and they were able to take audio of Alec Guinness saying the word afraid and turn it into Rey. So you have two voices of Ben Kenobi in this
But those could
vision.
be Force Ghosts.
They could be Force Ghosts, but I mean, where was any other foothold into her Jedi universe? I mean, why just those people? Do you know what I mean?
But
Why wasn't it like a million more
here's
Force
my
Ghosts?
one thing, though. While Obi-Wan is powerful, he's nowhere near a Skywalker in power. Everyone knows that. Skywalker, his lineage, is basically conceived by the Force. I don't want to get into midichlorians or all that shit, but I'm
Please
just
and thank
saying
you.
the
I had
idea.
midichlorians once, but
The
I'm still
idea
unclear
is
right
that the Skywalker lineage, beginning with Anakin, is a lineage where he was conceived by the Force, and Rey's ability to pick up what honestly
So are you
took
following
Luke
the
Skywalker.
prequels idea there? That he was
I'm
conceived by the Force?
No, I'm including
Space Jesus?
no, I'm including parts of it. I mean, because that's considered
Yeah.
canon, is the prequels.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not, it's part of it. But what I'm saying is that the ability for Rey to become that adept at the Force, being able to use the Jedi mind trick, being able to use a lightsaber the way that she did, you could say that, well, you know what, maybe she's just a fast learner. But even the ability to pilot the Millennium Falcon the way she did, she's been living on a fucking desert planet her whole life. How the fuck does she know anything about piloting? And we all
She read
know.
the script too.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, those are traits that are only of a Skywalker. You know what I mean?
Perhaps. I mean,
I'm
I
not
just feel-
saying, and honestly, if it comes down to it,
Gotta
it
agree
says
with you there,
that
Brian.
that Obi-Wan is the daddy, and that he got it on with, I don't know, some Jawa on Tatooine. But I'm just
Rey's mom is not a Jawa.
I think that is what happened with Anakin's mom. She's like, oh, I have never been touched by a man, but I got pregnant. It's like, no, you had sex with the sand person and you don't want to admit it. Like a Tusken Raider came by and just like, you and him got it on.
well, that actually did happen later on in the movies. We all know she was raped by Tusken Raiders, right? That's what happened.
Yeah, dude.
You know.
That's what.
That's
Well, no,
what
it was-
actually
Exactly,
happened.
that's what happened.
She
I
was
thought that's the
tied
joke
up,
you're
raped,
making.
and
Is that not
beaten.
the joke
Well, no, it
you're
wasn't
making?
Tusken
Tusken
Raiders.
It wasn't a Tusken Raider. It was
Sand people. Those are the same. It's the
Tusken
same
Raiders,
thing.
there
By the way,
are-
they're so small. Like, did they have to get on like a little stool to rape her?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Okay, moving on.
Okay.
I think it would be a little disappointing if she was Luke's daughter, just because that feels so easy. You know what I mean? Maybe that's why I like the Kenobi
This whole
theory
film
better.
was so easy.
Well, I mean, I
Right,
look
but
at it
like
as...
I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt. Like I said, I can't pass judgment fully until I see the next two movies.
But I mean, you could say that follows more in line with the extended series than anything. Mm-hmm. You know, with the fact that you have Jason Solo and what was his twin, Jaina, both two sides of the same coin.
Yeah,
battling
I
each
mean,
other.
it would
So-
make her and Kylo Ren cousins. But it's interesting. Did you guys hear about the video game that was released? I think it was another country's version of the video game.
They called it Kenobi.
No, Kylo Ren taunts Rey in the thing and calls her cousin.
See what I mean?
I still like my theory better.
No, that's fine. I mean, hey, I might end up being complete bullshit with my my
I
Snoke
could be
theory.
wrong too. Like, I'm not going to be mad about
Is
it.
what's
you know?
his face Lando's kid? Or are they going to go that route?
No,
I don't think so. No.
Come on.
I'm not being like sardonic here. Like there have been theories that he's Lando's kid,
No,
and they're
I
all
mean-
connected.
I think to try to put everything to have a foothold in the old movies, I think that would be a huge mistake.
That
I
would
hope
be a
that's
little
not a
weird.
writing decision that anyone makes.
That would be a little
don't.
weird. Well, I'd have to say that we're going to wrap up the show here.
Totally. Good discussion, guys.
Very good discussion.
That discussion could have gone on forever.
I
Could've.
could have talked
That's
for
why.
8
That's why I'm
days.
going to put a on it. So please be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at Psycho Show. If you have a favorite movie you would like us to go ahead and discuss, or a question you want to throw at us, obviously we love Star Wars. So if you have a question about Star Wars or any other movie, be sure to contact us at cinemapsychoshow@gmail.com, and be sure to subscribe to us to catch our next show, available every Friday.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.